The first time the world noticed something was wrong with baby Cassian Voss, he was lying silently in a hospital room where even the strongest doctors had run out of answers. The child of the most feared Mafia boss in the city was shrinking day by day, becoming weaker with every sunrise, while his powerful father watched helplessly from the corner, unable to protect the one person who mattered more than his entire empire. The room that once echoed with the sound of business deals and intimidating orders had become painfully quiet. Riven Voss, a man whose name made criminals tremble and enemies disappear, sat beside a tiny crib holding a bottle that his baby son refused to finish. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his eyes were red from sleepless nights, and for the first time in his life, the man everyone called a monster looked completely broken. Cassian was only 7 months old, but he had already been through more fear and pain than anyone should experience. He was losing weight steadily. His cheeks had become hollow, his little hands were fragile, and the playful spark that once filled his eyes was fading. Every doctor who examined him searched for a reason, but every test came back almost normal. They checked his heart, his blood, his organs, and his nutrition. They changed formulas, tried treatments, and called specialists from different cities. Still, the baby continued to disappear in front of them. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of caring hearts, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Heart Kindness Tales. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Riven Voss had built an empire through fear. He controlled businesses, owned half the city's night economy, and had people following his orders without question. But none of that mattered when his son cried softly in his arms. Money could buy the best hospitals. Power could bring the best doctors. But nothing could force a small baby's body to heal. The only person who seemed unaffected by Riven's intimidating reputation was a young nurse named Ilara Morel. Ilara had worked in the children's ward for years. She had seen wealthy families, struggling families, and everything in between. To her, every child was the same. A scared little person who needed patience and love. She never looked at Riven as a dangerous man. She only saw a father who was terrified. During her night shifts, Ilara noticed things others ignored. Doctors looked at charts. Specialists studied reports. But Ilara watched Cassian. She noticed how the baby turned his head slightly every time someone brought the bottle near him. She noticed how he became uncomfortable after feeding. She noticed the tiny expression of distress on his face that lasted only a few seconds before he became quiet again. Most people saw a weak baby. Ilara saw a baby trying to communicate. One evening, when the hospital halls were almost empty and the city lights reflected against the windows, Ilara gently picked Cassian up. Riven watched carefully, his protective instincts immediately rising. "Be careful," he said quietly. "He's weaker than he looks." Ilara looked at him calmly. That's exactly why someone needs to listen to him. Riven was used to people fearing his voice. But Ilara's words stopped him. She carefully fed Cassian, not rushing like the others had done. She held him in a different position, watched his breathing, and paid attention to every small reaction. Within minutes, she noticed something strange. Cassian wasn't refusing food because he didn't want it. He was in pain. Ilara started reviewing the feeding records from the beginning. She asked questions nobody had thought to ask. She wanted to know not only what Cassian ate, but how he reacted afterward. After hours of searching through notes, she found a pattern. Every time Cassian drank, he became uncomfortable. Every time he swallowed, his body fought against it. The doctors had assumed it was a feeding issue or a simple stomach problem, but Ilara suspected something deeper. She requested another evaluation. Some doctors doubted her. "You're a nurse, not a specialist," one doctor reminded her. Ilara didn't argue. She simply answered, "Maybe. But I'm the one who noticed he was hurting." Those words reached Riven. Because deep inside, he knew she was right. His entire life had been built on noticing threats before they happened. He had survived by understanding people's weaknesses. But when it came to his own son, he had missed the smallest signs. The next examination revealed what everyone had overlooked. Cassian had a rare condition affecting his ability to properly swallow and digest certain foods. It wasn't obvious in the standard tests because his body looked healthy on paper. The problem was hidden in the way his muscles and nerves were working together. The baby wasn't starving because he was sick. He was starving because every meal was a struggle. For the first time in weeks, there was an answer. But the answer came with a difficult road ahead. Cassian needed special feeding therapy. He needed time, patience, and constant care. Recovery wouldn't happen overnight. Riven Voss, the man who had forced entire organizations to obey him, found himself sitting for hours learning how to hold his baby correctly during feeding. He learned how to recognize his son's tiny signals. He learned that sometimes love wasn't about protecting someone from the world. Sometimes love was about slowing down enough to truly understand them. Days turned into weeks. The hospital room changed. The silence was replaced by small moments of happiness. Cassian began reaching for toys again. His eyes became brighter. His tiny fingers started gripping Riven's hand. The first time the baby finished a full feeding without pain, Riven didn't celebrate with his usual confidence. He didn't call anyone. He didn't announce it to his empire. He simply held his son close and cried. Elara saw him sitting there, a powerful man with tears running down his face, and she understood something important. Behind every frightening person, there is often a story nobody knows. Riven had spent years becoming someone people feared because he believed fear kept him safe. But Cassian was teaching him something different. His son didn't need a powerful father. He needed a present one. As the months passed, Cassian grew stronger. His cheeks became round again. His laughter returned to the room. The baby who once seemed to be fading away was now crawling across the floor, chasing toys and smiling at everyone. The doctors were amazed by his recovery. But Riven knew the truth. The person who saved his son wasn't the most expensive specialist. It wasn't his money. It wasn't his influence. It was a nurse who cared enough to notice what everyone else missed. Elara never asked for rewards. She never wanted attention. She simply believed that every life deserved to be heard. One afternoon, Riven met her outside the hospital. The city was busy around them, but for once he didn't feel like a man fighting the world. He felt like a father. "I spent my whole life thinking strength meant never needing anyone," Riven said. "But you showed me I was wrong." Elara smiled. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who allow themselves to care. Riven looked at his son, who was sleeping peacefully in his arms. For years, people had whispered about Riven Voss as a ruthless man with no heart. But the world never saw the nights he spent beside a hospital crib. It never saw the fear in his eyes when his baby was suffering. It never saw the way a tiny child changed him completely. Cassian's illness had taken away his pride, his certainty, and his belief that he could control everything. But it gave him something far more valuable. A heart. And from that day forward, Riven changed the way he lived. He started helping children's hospitals. He supported families who couldn't afford treatment. He created a foundation in honor of the nurse who reminded him that compassion could reach places power never could. Years later, when people asked him about the greatest victory of his life, they expected him to talk about his empire. Instead, he would always say the same thing. "My greatest victory was the day I learned how to be a father." Because sometimes the smallest person in our lives can teach us the biggest lessons. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one who brings hope. And sometimes, one caring heart can save another. If this story touched your heart, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribing to Heart Kindness Tales for more emotional stories that remind us of the good still left in the world. Before the story ends, leave a comment and tell us, what was the most powerful moment that touched your heart today? Because every comment, every share, and every kind word helps spread these messages of hope further than we can imagine.